Lori, hello, can you hear me? I am live on YouTube and YouTube alone just to see if this is actually working. And yeah, just let me know if you can hear me okay. And if it's clear or if it's not clear. If it's clear, then cool. And if it's not clear, let me know. Okay, yes, you can. Okay. How does it sound? Does it sound okay, or does it sound a little foggy or not as clear as what it could? I haven't plugged in my microphone, and so I'm wondering if the microphone had something to do with it or not. So I was wondering if the microphone was part of the reason as why it wasn't working. So I don't know. I don't know if you were on yet and was checking. It seems very clear. Okay, seems very clear. We will take that. Cool. We'll take that. We'll take that. Could have been. Yeah, who knows? I mean, it's just like the strangest thing. Strangest thing. Well, now I'm just gonna experiment something. I'm going to try to plug it in, and now let me know if you have or if you can tell anything different. So I just plugged it in. And yeah, let me know if you can. Now that it is plugged in, let me know if it's any different at all. Is it better, same, worse? Hello, Bridget. Good to see you. Brr, 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 brr. Can you hear me okay with this microphone now that this little guy is plugged in? Or is it the same, different, worse, or anything at all? Yes. I can still hear you, and it sounds about the same. Very strange. That's remarkable. Well, you know what? It's working. So that is a huge blessing. That is a huge blessing. So we will just pray that this continues on. I'm about to go live on TikTok here, so we will get this show on the road as well. It is. It's funny. What's up, Yogi? Hello. Man, it is. I'm just pumped that. I sure hope so. Yeah, I know, right, Lord? Yeah, YouTube's definitely has a lot of definitely some good things to it. So I'm thankful to have YouTube and TikTok. So thankful YouTube is working. I know, right? It is very yeah, man. I had to call. I called in to our provider, and we were getting I think 45 megabytes per second, which was ridiculous because our plan was around 400 or 500. That's what we were supposed to be getting. And so I called in, and they're like, "Oh, you're eligible for a free upgrade." And then they sent me a new router and a new modem for free because it was just part of their upgrade. And so they upgraded us to 800 megabytes, which was crazy. And so they just needed everybody to call in and request it. And I was like, how in the world would I know to call in? And they're like, well, we advertised all over the place. And I was like, well, that explains it because I don't watch TV or anything like that. So hello, Gina. Hello. How are you doing? What's up, Nate? How you doing, big dog? Good to see you. Ryan. What's up, Alyssa? Ryan, Meredith, hello. Good to see you guys. We were just getting started. So come on in. Man, already getting invites. That's strange. Blessed, right? Yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay. Sheesh. What's up? Legit. Too legit to quit. So thankful. Hi, Bridget. Hi, Yogi. Lori says we are up and running. Hey, thank you for those roses there, Gina. Thank you so much. Very kind. We are up and running over on YouTube. In case you guys are interested in that, so that's kind of cool. And hopefully this works. Nice tea. Hey, thank you. Yeah, it's got this little American. Got American flag on it with a cross in the middle of it instead of the stars. So I thought I like that. I'm a flag guy. YouTube works. Yes, it does. Reveal the topic of the evening. The topic of the evening is going to be Genesis chapter 1, verse 9 through 19. Simple Gospel podcast. That is going to be the topic of the evening. But as per usual, we'll be going all over the place. We'll be talking about some interesting things. So it'll be kind of fun. Be kind of fun to have some interesting thoughts, I guess to say it in one way or the other. But here in Oklahoma, we've had 50 to 70 mile an hour winds today. I'm checking to see if I have any damage at my house. Holy smokes, it's bad. Lots of fires around. Holy smokes. I did not know that. Yeah, that's some high winds right there, Lori. We just went to the park today with my oldest. She's turning 8 tomorrow, so sad. She was actually crying because she didn't want to turn 8. Hi, happy Friday. Hello, Lisa. Ryan stretching. Oh God, stretch the heavens. Yeah, man. Just gotta get up. Just stretch it. Good evening. Hello, faithful. Hello. But yeah, no, it was just funny seeing that. But anyways, we were at the park and it was just blustery. So winds all over the place. What's up, legit? Yogi says, Lori, hope all is well. I saw wildfire near OSU and 18-wheelers blown over by wind in our Amarillo. I almost said Armarillo. Hey, thank you so much, Simple Gospel. Thank you for that heart. That's very kind. Yeah, thank you so much. The winds are wild, but it's, I'll take the nice weather. It's just funny because I don't know if you guys have allergies, but I do. And so I'm just like, I just can't, I just so bad. I'm like, that's all bad out here. Second cup. I know, right? It's working. Let's go. I'm close to San Antonio and we've been very lucky today so far. Well, maybe it's coming your way. Courtney said she has 3 different tornadoes near her right now. Holy smokes, 3. Yeah, no kidding, right, Nathan? Yeah, it is. It's getting weird. Happy Friday to you too. Hopefully you guys are doing well. What's up, Eli? Long time no see, man. How you been? It's good to see you again. Hopefully you're doing well. I don't know if you guys knew about Pastor Sam. Pastor Sam, he can you believe Robert Morris? It was my church home. Can you believe Robert Morris? What's up, Henry? Why am I blanking on Robert Morris right now? But yeah, Sam Henderson, he's a pastor here on TikTok, and he Gateway. I am completely drawing a blank, probably because I have more than one thing on my mind right now. So sorry about that, Lisa. It's Ryan. What's up? Hello, Irene. Hello. I'm here all the time. I just don't talk much. Oh, okay. That's okay. It's okay. He was huge in Texas. I see. But yeah, Pastor Sam, he's on here on TikTok, and his cousin ended up getting shot. Need more Jocko. Yes. But his cousin ended up getting shot like 7 times. And so if you guys could pray for him and his family and the doctors who are taking care of him, apparently there's still 3 rounds in him, but I think he's stable. And so it's really fascinating seeing how something like that could happen in the blink of an eye. It's just wild. And so, I'm just like a fly on the wall and I only know what he posted. Hey, thank you, Krista. Thank you so much for that. Hello, Juniper. Hello. But yeah, pray for him if you would. He's a big prayer warrior, and so I know he's praying like crazy all the time, and so I think he's just I think he's awesome. But yeah, it's just wild to see. But the thing that I was thinking about that is that he was just going outside that day, had plans to do something later on that evening, I'm sure, and then next thing you know, he's in the hospital after he gets that happens to him, and so it's just you just never know what could actually happen to somebody. Hello, Lisa and West. Hello. What's up, Felicia? Eek, lots of guns over there. Yeah, man. Well, I'm all for it, honestly. Big advocate of that myself. So let's go. Oh no, what's his name again? I don't know the cousin's name. I just know it's Pastor Sam Henderson, his cousin. So lift him up. I don't know his name. So, but yeah, that's happening. So that's something that we were praying for. But it is good to be live on YouTube and TikTok again. So I think that is super cool. Can you read Deuteronomy 22:28? I can. Can you read it? I'm pretty sure I know exactly where you're going with that. So you can just pick. It's like they're all just. Oh man, so funny. But you know what? You can hang out with us. Hey Sam, what's up? True Jello. We're just gonna go True Jello. I'm so sorry. Somebody had to sound it out for me. I already forget. Sweets and treats. Hello. Thank you so much, though, Sam. I appreciate that gift. That is just too funny. Hey, Lisa, thank you so much. Yes, sir. So happy for YouTube tonight. Yeah, no kidding. So if you guys would prefer YouTube is up and running. So we got to appreciate that while it's working. So we just updated our router and modem and internet. And so hopefully all of that is now squared away. So we hope that the bumpy part of that road is behind us. So we shall see. Hello, Rusty. Hi, my friend. Legalistic peeps. No kidding. Oh, great job, right? Thank you. Hey, Amanda, thank you so much for the rose. I appreciate that so much. Hello, everyone. Felicia. Yeah. All right. Well, we it's actually kind of interesting. I said that we would go live around 9:30. What's up, Uncle Ryan? What is going on, Luke? What's up, big dog? How are you doing, man? Good to see you. Oh man, what are you doing right now? Are you a home, Lucas? That's awesome, man. No more Stone Age, right? Legit, right? But yeah, no. So I said that we would go live around 9:30, and it's earlier than that. So that's okay. I was actually thinking like that we had a lot to cover, and I actually don't think it's going to take that long to cover what we're going to talk about tonight. So that's completely fine. No more AOL dial-up. No kidding, man. Matthew, Mark, Luke say Jesus did not carry the cross. John said he did. They're lying. Oh, we figured it out. We solved the mystery. But I was talking. I actually I was going to tell you guys. I went out to breakfast with a friend today, and I actually, well, oh, never mind. I went out to breakfast today, and I was talking to somebody who is involved in a church, and they're on staff and whatnot. And I was talking to them, and I was telling them about what we do here, like the TikTok live and stuff. And I was telling them about how we get a lot of trolls, we get a lot of people who come in here just from all over the world who want to try to make some waves and stuff like that. And I'm like, it's really fascinating how much time people want to take out of their day to come in and just scream and yell at you with all capital letters. I'm like, it's remarkable. But one of the things that we were talking about today was the gospel. And I was telling them, I was like, the gospel. And I was like, where to find the gospel, right? And it kind of broke my heart because I kind of picked up. I didn't want to make him feel bad. I never want to make anybody feel bad about not knowing something. So I started talking immediately after I, sensed that he didn't understand or know, because I didn't want to make him feel bad. So I show him about where it's talked about in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. And so I told him that, and you could see him get all pumped up about reading it. I was like, yeah, that's it right there. I was like, that's the good stuff. That's the good stuff right there. And it kind of was sad for me to hear or to see, even though I was thankful to tell him, but it showed me that a lot of people have no idea. A lot of people have no idea about where the gospel is, where you can find the gospel. Where can you find the gospel? And so I was able to show him that. And so then as I was going about throughout my day today, I was thinking about him and praying for him, because he's a pastor in a big church. And I was just like, man, my heart was breaking for, churches that don't really, they don't know, I don't know. I try not to ever say anything too harsh or critical about other people, because I just want them to know, because I want them to learn, and I want them to be educated so that they can tell other people and educate other people as well. But when he didn't know, I was just like blown away, because I'm like, this is everything. And I was like, it's like he knew how to tell somebody about Jesus. So, he knew that, but he didn't know where the gospel was. And I was like, I thought everybody knew this. But so I was praying for him today as I was, we were at the park and he came to mind. I was praying for him. So I was hoping, and I'm going to be trying to help and, encourage him where I can and whatever. But, he was just leaning in, and I loved it. He was just leaning in, wanting to talk more and more and more. And unfortunately he had to go. And I was like, it's a good thing, because I could have been here all day talking about this guy. He's like, I love talking about it too. So it was really cool to see him get pumped up. And so it was fun. It was a great conversation. But I was just praying for him, because I want him to, thank you, Gina. Thank you for the rose. Jeff, thank you so much. But it just is really, really fascinating how much people don't know. And so it was kind of like a picture in what you and I are aware of. A lot of people don't know. And because they don't know, then it's just a normal thing to not know. And I understand that, and I'm sensitive to that. This is a big church. That person was a part of a big church, and he was, on staff and stuff like that. And I'm just like, it's mind blowing. I'm just like, I want so badly to just tell him everything. And it's not because I want people to be like, oh, Ryan knows so much. That's not it at all. I want them to get lit, and I want them to get so pumped up so that they can go out and then do what, we're doing here, and then do the exact same thing and try to win some. But, you got to be well armed, and we need to be always ready to provide a defense for the hope that is within us. And so I think there's just like we talked about it before. There's just it seems like there's a famine in the world right now, and the famine is the word of God. There's a lot of intelligent people, in these Bible studies, and there's a lot of people who have a lot of knowledge in these Bible studies who come in here and whatnot. And I know there's a lot of very, very knowledgeable people, and, I don't know who is watching me. I don't know who is out there, but it's not about how much you know. And I understand that as well, but it is important to know. That's why Paul says to add to your faith virtue, to your virtue knowledge. And so it's really, really good to keep on diving in. But I think that in our world, especially in my city, I think there's just this lack of this is enough. And it's breaking my heart in a sense, because when I'm looking at the world right now, I feel like I'm the crazy person, because I feel like I'm the one who's thinking I'm the only one out here thinking this way. Am I the only one? And I know that I'm not the only one. I know that there's other people in here who see what's going on, and that they just long for other people to break their heart for the Lord. And if you break your heart for the Lord, then you're going to start living for the Lord in a very out loud kind of way. And it just you don't see it too much. You don't see wanting, like a longing. And so if you do have somebody that's like-minded like that in your world, then you just want to cling on to that person. You just want to hang on to that person. Thank you, Jeff. And the more you learn, the more you recognize your sinfulness, and the more you recognize how much you were saved from, and how unworthy you were to begin with, the more you want to worship the Lord, and the more you want to follow him, and the more you want to reflect him in the world. And it's just crazy, because I don't see it much. I see sports. I see football games and basketball games, and everybody is propping all of these things up and taking the center stage and the spotlight. And it's just man, it's I'm not downplaying, I love playing sports. I love playing sports, but it shouldn't be number one on the list. Jesus should be number one on the list. And Jesus has taken the back seat. And so that's why I personally believe, that we're in the Laodicean world, because our culture, our society has done such a bang up job on getting the attention off of the family and off of Jesus. And now it's on sports, and it's on careers, and it's on, I was scrolling on TikTok, and I saw this one video on TikTok. Who knows what's going to pop up in your TikTok FYP or whatever. But I'm like, man, we are a generation that is all about what we look like. I mean, there's just people who are just taking selfies and trying to look the best and ever. I'm like, I was like, these bodies are going away. And so, perspective is really important. And it's just one of those things where I just want so badly to, just I don't know. It's just wild. So anyways, I'm hoping to get more connected with him a little bit more, and so that we can, kind of, help each other in a sense. But it was good because I saw him leaning in and he just wanted to hear, and I was like, man, that's really good. But yeah, so it's encouraging, I guess, in a roundabout way, that he was very, very eager, and he said that he had goosebumps at one time. I was like, I don't know at what point, but I was like, that's really cool. Not that, it's about a feeling, but you could tell he was really, really leaning in. And so, the word of God is very powerful. It's just that the word of God is not really talked about too much anymore. Like we talk about, it's more motivational speakers in churches nowadays than the word of God. But when you hear the word of God, you just are so lit up about it. You're like, holy smokes, I didn't even know that was in there. And I'm like, man, I know. And so when you learn something, you just hang on to it, and then you make it yours, and then that's yours for life. You just hang on to that. But yeah, anyways, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get off on that kind of topic there, but I think it's important for us to kind of recognize where we're at, and that's just, a little piece inside my world. And I'm not saying it's the world all over the place, but I'm saying that it is something that is going on. Hey, thank you, Laura. Thank you for the rose. So I know, just love our Jesus, man, and love him on purpose. Like, I can't unsee it. Ever since I made that one video about like how we're so prideful to, hey, thank you, Sherry. We're so prideful to potato. Hello. We're so prideful to wave an American flag, right? We're so prideful. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Henry. I'm done. Let's see. But we're so prideful to hang an American flag and a football flag, or a baseball flag, or whatever kind of sports team we're fans of, and we love talking about it, and we have no shame talking about it because it's accepted. But nobody likes talking about Jesus. Krabby Patties. Hey, thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much for those roses. Thank you, guys. So I just want I want your thing that you are just known for to be Jesus. Like, I mean, honestly, like, I want that to be your thing. I want that. Like, like, it's awesome to have hobbies. I want the Bible to be your hobby. I want it to be your hobby. The more you know about the Bible, the more you're going to want to tell people about Jesus. And so you don't need to know everything in the Bible in order to tell people about Jesus. But like, if you make the Bible your hobby, then you are going to want to tell people about Jesus. And I'm like, this is how we want to do it. And so when you learn, you get pumped up. You want to go tell somebody else. Hello, Nancy. Hello, Tammy. Hello. Yeah. And so anyways, I know there's just Christians out there who are, just still on the milk, and we need to get off of the milk and on the meat and potatoes. Thank you, Brenda Lee. Thank you so much. And so anyways, hello, Katie. Hello. Well, howdy there, early bird. What's up, Amber? Yeah, if you guys are new here, thank you so much for being here. My name is Ryan, right? Sweets and treats. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Juniper. Hey, thank you, Kathy. Thank you so much. My name is Ryan. So true. I started really diving in back in September. It's so exciting. And so that's something that I'm kind of excited about right now, honestly, is that there's a lot of people here on TikTok that are getting pumped up. And I can kind of sense that like, and I don't know how legit it is, but I see in the comments, like, so many people, you're welcome, bro. There's so many people who are like leaning in, and hey, what's up, Tamara? What's up, Cheryl? Hello. There's a lot of people leaning in on certain TikTok videos, and you read the comments, and I don't know how genuine all of those commentators are, the people who make a comment on those videos, but I read some of the comments of other people's videos, and it seems like a lot of people are paying attention. It just doesn't seem like there's that many people in, my immediate life, and so, like, when you compare what you're seeing on TikTok, that's the world. You're getting a huge net that is cast out there. And so what I kind of think might be happening in our world right now is like what you see in Matthew chapter 13 in the parables of the kingdom parables in Matthew 13. You have what seems to be one of the last parables is the dragnet. You have the dragnet parable. And so when you think about the dragnet parable, basically what a dragnet was is they would throw this net out into the water, and there would be this heavy weight that would make the net sink all the way down to the bottom. And then they would pull the net in, and basically whatever was in there, you get clams, you get oysters, you get some fish, you get some all kinds of different fish all over the place. You would get a whole bunch of all kinds of stuff all up in that net. And then that net would be brought on board. And so basically the picture there, in my opinion, hello, Sandy, in my opinion, is that dragnet seems to parallel the Laodicean age. If you look at those parables in Matthew 13, they seem to parallel the 7 churches in Revelation chapter 2 and chapter 3. And so you can be the judge on that. That's personally how I see it. But what I think about is that the dragnet is basically like a final call. You have a final call. And so it's kind of like, like it's or the last call rather. There's something hanging out right in my face. And so I think people are waking up in a big kind of way around the world. Some people are waking up patriotically, unfortunately, instead of spiritually turning to the Lord. But there are people who are growing closer to the Lord during these times because of people like you and I. You and I, we're out there, we're telling people about what's going on. People are either see it or they don't see it. We can't force them to see it, and so we just do the best that we can, and we always lift them up in prayer, and pray for them because we want to reach lost people. Hey, thank you, Leah. Thank you so much. And so when you think about the parable of the dragnet, it just seems like that's the last ditch effort before Jesus takes his church home. And so if that's the last ditch effort, if that's where we're at, it seems like that might be what you and I are a part of right now. It seems like this might be like the last call, like everybody all aboard. And that might be the last call, right? Like, hey, Noah, go ahead and get into the ark, in that kind of context or that kind of picture visual, if you will. Who knows? There's people who believe that we have like 1,000 years left before. Hi, Uxora Pita 12. There are people who believe that we have like 1,000 years left before the rapture occurs. There's and I don't see it that way just because of everything happening in the world. But man, I'm telling you what, like we need to live like it's going to happen tomorrow. We need to live like it's going to happen tomorrow. And if you live like it's going to happen from tomorrow, then your life is going to change, and you need to live that way. I need to live that way. We need to do that. Why? Because it's not because of me, because I'm already saved. And I'm sure many of you are already saved too. And if you are, praise God. But my point is, what about the people who aren't? And so we need to go out there and tell them. That's why I say you and I are on a rescue mission. You and I are literally on a rescue mission. It's like, I want you to imagine like a plane went down into the woods. And then you and I are walking like 10 feet from each other, like in a line, kind of like walking through the woods in like a grid kind of pattern, trying to look for survivors. And we all have like a little whistle, and like if we find somebody, we blow the whistle, and we're like, and then we blow the whistle when we find one, and we're like, I found one over here, right? And so that's what we want to do. We want to be out there looking, and you're not gonna there's people who say like, I just wait for an opportunity. I'm like, you can create an opportunity. Anytime you talk to somebody, just ask them real quick, hey, do you go to church anywhere? Boom, opportunity has arrived. And so that's what I do, and I think it's really important to do that. But we need to take it so serious, because it is very serious. And it's the most, heaven rejoices, right? When one man. So we need to take it very serious, I think. Hello, Britt. Hello. Oh man. I just, I know people care. I don't know. Okay. So, all right. Cool shirt. What's up, Cool? How you doing, man? Good to see you. I'm just ready to go home. Hey guys, Cole, let's see. He's in YouTube chat right now. He's my buddy. I've been telling him about Jesus for over a decade. And if you would pray for him, YouTube got fixed. I think it was my internet, Cole. Pray for him. He's going to be rolling his eyes in a big kind of way right now, because he's watching me. But he hears what I'm saying. So whether or not he believes it or not, it's still up to him, but I've been working on him. Boom, immediate shutdown. Man, well, you know what? Keep praying. Hey, Christina, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Christina. Appreciate it. But okay, well, if you guys are new here, thank you so much for being here. We can go ahead and get started. Oh, that's one thing. Yeah, Cole actually told me. I don't know if you guys knew this, but gold just reached an all-time high. That's fascinating. It was just about $1,900 to buy an ounce like a year or two ago, and now it's $3,000. So it just reached an all-time high. Gold, an ounce of gold is now $3,000 for an ounce. Fascinating stuff. Who knows what's going to happen with our monetary system? I do think that we will be going digital sooner or later. I think that's inevitable. And that is because of what we see in Revelation chapter 13, because people will not be able to buy or sell without the mark of the beast. And so it seems that there's going to be control, because if there was literal physical money that you could touch, then somebody wouldn't be able to control whether or not you buy or sell. And so I think that's really, important to pay attention to, or at least be sensitive to that idea. Who knows how the future is going to unravel? But I also think it's good to recognize that over in the EU, the European Union right now, there's a lot of chaos going on all over the place. And now they are scrambling to build their own military because they're worried about, America. Is America going to protect them? All this kind of stuff. You have a whole bunch of stuff happening right there. You have a peace deal that's being brokered between Russia and Ukraine, and that's being brokered by America, by our president. He is brokering a peace deal over there, which I think is significant. And then you also have stuff going on over in Syria. You have a ton of stuff happening over in Syria. A lot of people being ended in a sense, and not in a sense in a very literal way, but they're being put down in a very wild, terrible manner, which is heartbreaking. You see a whole bunch of terrible things happening right now. And I even saw a post today that talked about how what they were doing over there to the Jewish people, they believe that is a form of worship to Allah. Hey, Christina, thank you so much. And so I think that's really wild. And so when they do it, they are doing it under a deception. They're doing that to the Jewish people because they think it's their form of worshiping Allah, and that is just heartbreaking. And you have just chaos all over the place. It is just everywhere you look. It is crazy. And so it's kind of important to pay attention to, because in order for them to say peace and safety, there needs to be first a whole bunch of chaos all over the place. Because if everything was perfectly peaceful and safe, safe right now, people wouldn't have the desire to say peace and safety. And so, what's up, Realist? How you doing? And so, when you look at how our world is right now, it seems like there's not peace anywhere. There's chaos all over the place. It doesn't seem like there's safety anywhere because there's chaos all over the place. And so, when you think about, like how people say that in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, when they will say peace and safety, like it seems like we are inching towards that in a very, very quick manner. So it's just wild to be alive during this time. Hello, Tomas. Hello. I'm Pastor from Pakistan. Hello. It's Iftikhar. Hello from Pakistan. Good to see you. What's up, Legit? Do you think it's even possible for those to ever come to Christ? The veil is so thick with them, though, because they live to, I don't know. Yeah, I think anything's possible. I think it's definitely possible. Is it going to happen? I don't know. I would say it's probably not probable, but I would say it's definitely possible. But okay, so if you guys are new here, thank you so much for being here. We can go ahead and get started. That's a little bit of a warm up in a sense, because I came on a little bit early. Thought we could talk about some world things. But now we could go ahead and kind of switch gears a little bit. Hey, thank you, Gail. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. If you guys are new here, my name is Ryan. We are going through the Bible book by book, chapter by chapter, verse by verse, and it is so much fun. I am having an absolute blast. I'm telling you, if you sit down with me and it's just me and you, and there's, we have a window of opportunity, I'm going to tell you about what I learned in the Bible. I'm just telling you right now, like, that's how it's going to happen. And the reason is because I'm learning so much. And when I learn, like, this is stuff I don't know. Like, I need you to understand that. Like, I don't want you to view me as I know everything, and because I don't, and I never will. and I am very sensitive to what knowledge does to people. Knowledge puffs up, but love edifies. And so, there's a lot of people who make videos and stuff, and they do stuff that is very fancy, and they pay attention to things that are very sparkly and shiny. And I just want you to understand that the most sparkly or shiny or most attractive thing in the Bible is what Jesus did on the cross. And I never want you to lose sight of that. There are so many people who make videos about the book of Enoch, and they want to talk about the angels and the Nephilim and all of these things, and they get so just completely infatuated with these things that are creatures. They're infatuated with creatures. And I'm like, forget them. Let's talk about the creator. I was like, let's talk about the creator. And so that is what I want you to always remember. Don't get sidetracked. Thank you so much, Rhonda. Don't get sidetracked because of the other things. Don't think because you see a cool picture and, like there's all the, Tartaria and Nephilim and what about these fallen angels and all these kind of stuff. You can talk about it, but don't get lost there. Stay with Jesus. Just keep your eyes on him. Because it's so easy. So many people get pulled this way, and they make there's a lot of people who get very popular because they talk about that kind of stuff, and it makes them sound very fancy. Honestly, we have no idea. We have no idea. And it's okay. If we needed to, there would have been a whole lot more information in the Bible about that kind of stuff, but there isn't. And so since there isn't, let's pay attention to what the volume of the book is about. And the volume of the book is about what Jesus did on the cross, his redemptive work. And thank you so much for that gift right there. And so we need to remember that, especially in a world that we're living in right now, where everybody's like, look over here, look over here, look over here, look over here, look over here. That's what everybody's trying to do. And it's taking our eyes off of Jesus Christ. And so if you keep your eyes on Jesus, then what are you going to want to talk about? You're going to want to talk about Jesus. If you look over here and you talk about the Nephilim and you get you're doing a whole bunch of research and all this kind of stuff, what are you going to want to talk about? You're going to want to talk about the Nephilim. Well, I am so hyper aware about that. And so that's why I keep pushing that on you guys, because I need you to understand to keep the importance to keep your eyes on Christ. Your eyes on Christ. It is everything. I can't tell you. When you are going through the storm, your eyes need to be on Christ, on him. I just need you to understand that. And that is what I long for you to just drill that into your brain, because that is literally everything. Because when you do that, then the things of this world will grow strangely dim. And when you recognize that the things of this world are going to go strangely dim, then you're all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, I don't need a big house. I don't need this. And wait a second, everybody's been telling me to do this, and this, and worry about my retirement, and worry about this, and worry about this. And I got to have a car, and I got to have a house, and I got to have the things. No, that stuff is it's nothing. I want you to imagine, I want you to fast forward to your life right now. And I want you to imagine that you got a couple hours left to live. You are on your deathbed. You're on your deathbed. There's not one person in here who would be like, I wish I bought more houses. I wish I had more cars. They're not going to say that. They're not going to think that. And so that means that those things do not matter when the time comes. And so since those things do not matter when the time comes, let's learn from their mistakes right now. And if we learn from our mistakes right now, then that means we can adjust, we can pivot, like what reminds me of the Friends, whatever, Ross, pivot. And so when you recognize how important it is to adjust and keep our eyes on Jesus Christ, then we're going to start living in that kind of way. We're going to start living for the Lord, and it's going to be a very real, genuine thing that is going to just be dripping off of us. And then when somebody comes around you, or if you go around somebody, they're just going to get it on them, and they're going to get lit up because you're lit up. And it's like lighting a candle on something. Here's your candle, it's burning, and then you get to light somebody else's candle, and they go do the same thing. That's what we need to be doing. I need you guys. You need me. I need you. You need me. We need to encourage one another. I'm going to fall down. You're going to fall down, but we're here to lift one another up. This whole thing that we're doing here on Bible study, this whole Bible study is meant to get you closer to the Lord if you're a born-again believer. If you're not a born-again believer, this whole point here is to inform you on how to know for sure you can get to heaven. And there's only one way to get to heaven. That is the most important thing out of everything in the entire Bible. The gospel, which can be found in 1 Corinthians 15, says that Jesus died according to the scriptures, that he was buried, and that he rose again on the third day according to the scriptures. This is why Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, he says, I determined not to know anything among you except Christ and him crucified. And he's like, I'm smarter than you all, but I'm not even going to say that. That means nothing. He's like, this means nothing. He's like, if you look at me, I want you to understand how important it is to see Christ and him crucified. If we keep our eyes on Christ and him crucified, then everything else is going to fade away. That's the important stuff right there, guys. That's the amazing stuff. And so right now in our world right now, it's not that big of a deal. It's literally not a big deal. There's people who just like, and I need you to make it a big deal. Can you please, in your life, make it a big deal for me? Make it a big deal. Make it important, and be like when you start talking to somebody about it, like have humility, like just be dripping with humility, and be like, I need you to understand what's at stake here. And so pour into them, share with them what's going on with your life, how you were saved, and then give it to them. There's only one way to get to heaven. There's only one way. First, you need to recognize the bad news. The bad news is that you are a sinner, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Romans 6:23 gives you more bad news. He says, the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord. That's everything. I mean, unbelievable. Like, that's just so good. It's just so good. And so the bad news is that you're a sinner. The bad news is that you've fallen short of God. And the bad news is that since you're a sinner, you're under the death penalty. That is some bad news, but it doesn't end there. There's the good news. The good news is coming up. The good news is that we are saved through Jesus Christ our Lord. I mean, praise God for that. We are saved through Jesus Christ our Lord. It is for by grace you have been saved through faith. And that not of yourselves. It is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. It is literally, you have no right to boast about anything that you do. The things that you have done, the good things that you have done, you were created for so that God gets that glory. The things that you do, it's not about you, and it's not about me. It is about him. It is about, hey, praise God that he allowed me this opportunity to learn this so that I could tell that person over there so that they can learn, and then he gets the glory for it. You and I, we are created for him. We are just created for him. And I just like to say, like, here you go. Here's what little I have, right? Like, I mean, he allows us to, like, what an absolute privilege it is to be used by God. You know, it is unbelievable. It is unbelievable. He, like, the stones could cry out. He could allow that he could have used the stone to give the gospel message. He could have used the donkey to use a gospel message. He could have used anything to do it, but he's allowing me to. He's letting me do that. And praise God for that, because I want to do that. Because the more I learn about him, the more I want to tell people about him. That is how it's supposed to work. I am supposed to be a light, and so are you. And so if you are supposed to be a light, how are you doing? How are you doing? Are you being a light? Can people tell that there is something different about you? And because you've told them about Jesus, can you just stop? Can you just stop talking about Jesus? Like, have somebody, like, it's almost like you just like, I can't, like, I just want to tell you, like, they're avoiding you, you know, like, I'm not saying get to that point, but you understand what I'm saying? Like, I just want you to be so lit up for the Lord, because there's so much to be lit up about. I mean, we are here for such a short time. Our life is a vapor. I mean, it's unreal. Like, literally, like, Paul refers to what we're going through right now as a light affliction. And when you realize that this is a light affliction, like what you and I are going through, it is just so temporary. Thank you, Diana. Thank you so much. This is such a temporary situation that we are down here. And when we see it, it's just so bizarre how we recognize that the things of this world will grow strangely dim. It is so unbelievable. Thank you, Diana. Thank you so much. It is so crazy. Like, you're just like, am I the only one? And I know you guys probably feel similar, but anyways, that's the important thing right there. I'm sorry, I don't mean to but that's very important, and I don't know many people on TikTok. I don't really follow people, like, and when I say follow, hey, thank you, yeah, thank you, Julie, Yasmin, and Julie, thank you guys so much. I don't really listen to people on TikTok. Like, I don't like, I follow people, but I don't listen to people. And I might pop into a live or something like that, but I'm there for like a minute or two and then I'm gone. So I don't really know other people. I'm sure many people in here might know some people who are like solid people. But it's just getting weird. It's getting weird out there. And, there's the laborers are few. I feel like, there's a big old field and the laborers are few. And so I don't know. It's just, I'm just excited. I see what's going on in the world. I see what's happening. I know you guys do too. And, one way or the other, we're one day closer to home. And it's just unbelievable to think about that. Like, standing before the Lord, I can't help but think about Paul. Like, I just can't help. I was talking to my dad 2 days ago, and I was talking to him, and I was like, Dad, you've done a really good job. And in his mind, he doesn't see it that way. He just thinks about like what he hasn't done. It's just like, it's just a natural thing. All right. Like, if I came up to you and I said, you're doing a really good job, you would probably be like, no. Julie, thank you so much. And so, my dad reacted that way, just, standard. But I was like, like when you think about Paul, like when he was coming down to the end of his life, he's in prison. You can hear the chains clanking off of the walls in a sense, while he's in prison. And he writes and he says, I have finished the race. And so I want you to think about your life. And so could you write that? Could you write that down? Could you look back on what you've done and be like I'm so happy that I chose what I did for the Lord. I'm so happy that I didn't go down that road and I didn't go down that road, which would have been real easy to go down, but I went down this road. Because, there's going to come a point to where, whether or not we realize it or if we have that opportunity, where we're going to come to this question mark in our mind. And it's kind of similar to what Paul basically, the intersection that Paul crossed, and he wrote down that he had finished the race. And I want to be pleased with that when that day comes for me. I want it to be, I actually asked Cole, like, I don't know if he's in here anymore. I don't even know if he remembers, but I asked him, we had a conversation because we talk quite often. And I think he actually asked me what I wanted to be remembered by, or I asked him what he wanted to be remembered by with just one word. And I asked him, I was like, hey, Cole, what would you want to be remembered by if there was just one word that summed you up? What do you want people to remember you by? And he said, giving. He wants to be remembered for being very giving. And he is very giving. He every time he shows up, he's got presents and he's a very giving person. And so when he asked me, I was like, I told him, I said, Jesus, like, what do you want? What do you want people to think of when they think of you, Ryan? And I was like, I want them to see Jesus. And so, it's like, what do you think? How do you think people view you right now? Like, if they, how like every time at a funeral, like somebody stands up and they talk about you and they talk about your life and whatnot, and they say some things. What would they say? It's just like one of those things where it just really makes you reflect. And so, there's still time to change that. And so I want it to be so just above and beyond Jesus. Like, he had just there is absolutely no doubt about Julie, or about Bridget, or about Amber, or about Elise, or about Mark, or about Legit, or about Yogi, or about Javish. I'm sorry. But like, I just want them to be like, when I see that person, when I see that girl, when I see that guy, I couldn't help but see Jesus. I mean, there's just such an obvious Christian, like, they were so loving. They served, they tried to help people. They told me about Jesus more times, and I was like, I'm already a Christian. Stop witnessing to me, And man, I'm sorry. Like, it's just yeah, just on my heart. So figured we could talk about that. Anyways, if you guys are new here, we'll get into it. My name is Ryan. We are going through the Bible. Thank you, Gempulis. Hello, Savannah. Hello, Savannah. My name is Ryan. We're going through the Bible book by book, chapter by chapter, verse by verse, and it has been such a blessing, such a journey, and such an encouragement for me. Hey, thank you for Lana. All of these studies, if you're looking for a verse-by-verse Bible study, I would encourage you to check us out if you've never been here before. All of these are uploaded to YouTube. There's a YouTube link up here in my TikTok profile. We're actually live on YouTube right now if you're looking for a little bit more of a quieter place. But you can come check us out on YouTube or stay on TikTok. But one way or the other, I would encourage you to follow me over on YouTube, just in case TikTok goes away, because they still might get rid of TikTok in America, and I hope that they don't, but if they do, we will still continue on these Bible studies over on YouTube. So anyways, all of these are uploaded to YouTube, and so we're just going through the Bible book by book, chapter by chapter, as we talked about before. The only thing that actually really I try to make the main thing, which is the gospel, which is what we talked about before. And so we'll touch on that here again, probably in an hour or so, because that's always going to be, it's what we always come back to. It's always going to be the main thing. But we just finished the book of Revelation. And so the book of Revelation was my favorite book. It's my favorite book. I could just talk about it forever. Like I just literally love talking about it. It's so good. Especially since I believe that we're living in Revelation chapter 3. I think that's where we're at right now. Revelation chapter 3, verse 20 or whatever the Laodicean church is specifically, but that's a secondary issue. Anyways, so we're going through the book of Genesis now, and we just recently started it. So we're in Genesis chapter 1. We've done a couple studies on it so far. We're going to be covering verse 9 through 19 tonight. So just a little bit of a review in case you missed the previous one so far, but to please check it out. I'm glad you're enjoying that. In case you missed the studies that we've done before, we're going to do a little bit of a review before we actually talk about what we're going to talk about tonight. So in Genesis chapter 1, before you can even really get into Genesis, it's important to understand the Torah. The Torah are the 5 books of Moses. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Those are the 5 books of Moses. That's referred to as the Torah. Now, there are some people who like to debate whether or not Moses actually wrote those books, and I would argue that he did. And one of those reasons is because Jesus basically authenticates Moses as the author in the Gospels. If you read the Gospels, you'll see that Jesus is like, yeah, you believed Moses, and he wrote of me. And so he basically confirms that Moses was the author. And so that can save you a ton of research and a lot of time trying to unpack who the author is, because Jesus lets us know. And so that's important. Jesus gives us a lot of clues, and similar to what he did in Matthew chapter 24, when he says, Daniel, he's like, go check out Daniel. Daniel, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel, the prophet. And so it's really fascinating seeing how these clues really, really help us. I mean, so when you dive into Genesis, I think it's really cool and really awesome to remember that this Bible that we read is composed of 66 books and written by over 40 different authors over a period of thousands of years. And I need you to not lose sight of how awesome that is, because we're reading about books of the Bible about authors who many of them didn't know each other, and they're all writing about the same thing. Everything that they're writing is being woven in together in such a beautiful way, and it's just unbelievable. The Bible is God-breathed, in a sense, in 2 Timothy 3:16, but it is really cool to see how it's basically put together. The Bible is a love story. We talked about this before, but it's basically, if you go and watch a romantic comedy, basically the movie starts out by the man and the woman meeting, and then as time goes on, there's drama in the middle, and then at the end, there's a wedding. And so that's basically the story of the Bible. In Genesis, you have the whole scene is being set. And then in the Revelation, you have a wedding. And so in Revelation chapter 19, you see that, the bride is there. The bride, behold the bride, the Lamb's wife. And so there's a wedding. There's going to be a wedding. There's going to be a celebration. This is a celebration. And so it's really fascinating thinking about that, because when you're reading about the book of Revelation, you don't think of a celebration, but that's how it's going to be. And that's what's going to take place. But the book of Revelation focuses on the terrible stuff, right? Like you think about the book of Revelation, you're like, oh, it's like fire and brimstone type stuff. But it's about a celebration. It's about a wedding. And you and I are the bride. And it's really cool to see how that is like the centerpiece. Like that's what we have to look forward to. And so when you read the book of Genesis, there's a lot of really interesting ideas that get ping-ponged around. And so in Genesis chapter 1, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And so we talked about that verse for a little bit because it's so foundational to believe that. If you have an issue with the Bible, if you don't believe that, the world was flooded, if you don't believe that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were actually thrown into the fiery furnace, because that doesn't seem, that's just the story, but I believe this, this, and this, I just don't believe this. If you pick and choose what you believe to be true in the Bible, then the whole thing is just going to come falling apart, because you and I can't be trusted. But who can be trusted is that God can be trusted. And I trust God, and I trust the Bible. The Bible is true. But going back to Genesis, thank you, Rachel. In Genesis chapter 1, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. If you believe that, you will not have an issue with anything else in the rest of the Bible. There's literally nothing. I mean, literally, because there's, in the beginning, nothing. God created the heavens and the earth. And so if you believe that, then everything else should be simple for you to wrap your mind around. And so I want you to really understand that. So Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, God. So Bereshit Elohim bara. So Bereshit bara Elohim. In the beginning, God created. So God created. So right there in that first verse, you have so much to unpack. And we talked about the Elohim. Elohim, it means God, but there's a plurality behind it. And so when you recognize in the very first verse of the Bible, God chose to use the word Elohim. And that is significant, because he could have chosen any other name to use there, but he chose Elohim. The reason why Elohim is important to understand is because there's a plurality behind that word. And so it doesn't prove the Trinity, but it basically opens the door for the Trinity. And so you can search the scriptures, which is what I would encourage you to always do. Test all things, hold fast to that which is good. Be like the Bereans, because they received the word, and then they search the scriptures daily to find out whether these things are so. That's in Acts chapter 17, verse 11. That's what you and I need to do. And so hear it and then go search. And so what is fascinating about Elohim, or the door opening for the Trinity conversation, is that there's many people who want to say that that's the most ridiculous thing ever. I believe in the Trinity. I believe in God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. I believe they are three in persons, but one in being. And so it's, thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much. There's all kinds of examples sprinkled all the way throughout the Bible. In Daniel chapter 7, you have the Ancient of Days, and you have the Son of Man. That's what Daniel sees. And so that's God the Father and God the Son. Psalm chapter 2, you have basically the Trinity having a trilogue, not a dialogue, but a trialogue, where there's three of them all talking with one another. It's really fascinating. That's Psalm chapter 2. If you read that, go check it out. You'll be able to see it. In the Gospels, you'll see when Jesus was baptized, out of a voice came out of heaven. This is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased. And the Spirit descended like a dove. So you have that right there. And then in Revelation chapter 5, you have God the Father holding the scroll, and then you have the Lamb, who was, as though it had been slain, comes up and takes the scroll from God the Father. And so you have that picture right there, in many, many other places. Thank you, Michelle. Many, many other places. And so that is all, in a sense, introduced, or the door is open for that conversation all the way back in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, Elohim. And so it's really, really provocative. But the reason why that is important to understand is because there's so many people, especially here on this app, who like to debate about God, and that, like trying to understand God. We have no idea. We have no idea. We need to remember that God allows us to understand some things about him. He chose to reveal a little bit about him. He chose to do that. He didn't have to do that. He chose to let us know a little bit about him. If you go out on a date with your boyfriend or girlfriend, you can choose to let them know a little bit about you. They don't know everything about you. You can choose to let them know. Be like, I'm going to tell them this about my story. I'm going to tell them this. And so God chose to let us know a little bit about himself. And that's amazing. So we focus on what little we know, but there's so much that we're never going to know. And so I think it's just going to spend all eternity trying to just learn more and more and more and more and more and more. And it's just going to be mind-blowing every single day. It's unreal. So in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, where it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, I think it's really important to understand that that is where everything started. In the beginning, time. That's when time was created. In the beginning, time. So you have a bubble that you and I are a part of. We are inside time. Time is affecting me. It is affecting you. We are inside of it. God created time. We are inside of time, in the beginning. Now, the reason why that verse is important is because there was a beginning. There are people that are saying out there that, that they don't believe that there was ever a beginning. They just think that there just always was something, and then nothing exploded, and then here we are. But the Bible specifically says in the beginning, meaning that before the beginning, there was God. John chapter 1, verse 1, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And so when you recognize that before the time even existed, God was there. We need to be sensitive to that. Before time existed, God was there. God literally created time. Time is a physical property. It's something that can be measured. And it differences depending on elevation. You can put like these atomic clocks at different elevations, and they're going to run faster and slower than one another because of the physical properties. It's really remarkable, learning that kind of stuff. But my point is that time is a part of it. It's physical. And so you and I are a part of it. It's all around us. So going back to Genesis chapter 1, where it says, in the beginning, that's time. God created the heavens, that's space, and the earth, that's matter. So God created the time, space, and matter all in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. And so that is such an important verse to just recognize and accept. This stuff is so far above us, we just get a little short peek. It's like a quick open the door, close the door kind of situation going on. You have like a snapshot of like what took place back then. We have no idea. We're just told, because even if God explained it to us, we still wouldn't even be able to understand it because it's so far above us. And this is why Psalm chapter 131 is such a good chapter, because in that chapter, David's like, man, my eyes are not too lofty, nor I'm not too haughty. He's like, I'm just going to stay low, and he's like, I'm going to stay in my lane. He's like, these things are way too profound for me. He's like, I cannot comprehend this. He's like, I don't understand, but you know what I do understand is that you are good and you chose to save me. He's like, you didn't have to say. And so I'm going to stay in my lane. And what I know is I know Jesus. And so since I know Jesus, that's what I want to talk about, because I don't know everything else, and I'm never going to know everything else, but I can talk about Jesus because how awesome is he? So that's Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, we talked about in the other chapters, we talked about this. There's a theory that is out there called the gap theory. And so the gap theory is basically where people insert a interval in between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2. And so they basically insert this gap theory. It's important to understand the word there, theory. It is a theory, kind of like the Big Bang theory. This is also a theory. So don't just accept it. You need to test it. But the theory is that basically people insert an interval between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2 because they needed to try to figure out when Satan fell. Because the question is, when did Satan fall? And so this is where this theory was invented, and this theory came up in around the 1800s. And so it's relatively new, but it is the idea is basically, when did Satan fall? And so if you read all the way in Genesis 1, in Genesis 1:1, you see when Satan was created. In the beginning, God created the heavens. So in Genesis 1:1, we learn about when Satan was created. That's when Satan was created, the heavens, because the heavens were created before the earth. So if you read Job chapter 38, what you'll find is that the angels were there while God created the earth. So God had witnesses to when the earth was created. And that's fascinating. So Satan was created before the earth was created. And so basically people were trying to figure out, well, Satan had to have fallen sometime because we learn about his creation in Genesis 1:1, but then he's introduced in Genesis 3 and he's in the Garden of Eden. So sometime between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 3, Satan had to fall. But you're not told about that in the book of Genesis. What you're told about that is in Ezekiel chapter 28 and Isaiah chapter 14. That's where you can read about Satan falling. And so that's why it's so interesting talking about this gap theory. Now, I want you to be, I want you, I don't know if I was very clear last time, but that gap theory is literally just a theory. But here is where it gets really wrong. The gap theory is where many people believe in millions of years created in Genesis 1:1 to Genesis 1:2. And so they insert millions of years between those verses, and that's where they insert dinosaurs. And they say this is where the dinosaurs lived, and they try to explain, and they basically cram all of this stuff in between this interval between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2. And so they say, yep, that's where Satan also fell. But it's so very important to recognize that these millions of years it doesn't even make any sense. I told you guys before, I believe that the earth is less than 10,000 years old. That's what I've landed on. Some people are saying it's exactly 6,000 years old, and I'm just like, I think it's less than 10,000. So that's where I land. I personally believe in a literal 6-day creation. I believe that the 6 days of creation were literal 24-hour days. And so we spend a lot of time on these couple verses because it's under attack in a big way. And so when we send our kids to school in public schools, what they're being taught is evolution. They're being taught that they came from a monkey. And so if a child grows up and they think that they came from a monkey, then they will think that there's no point in living and that this is all like, what's the point? And then they go down the wrong road and nothing matters. And so none of this matters and none of this matters. And is God, there is no God, there is no devil, there is no heaven, there is no hell. And so what's the point? And so there's no hope. And that's the whole tactic. Satan wants people to believe that there is no Satan. That's what he wants you to believe. He wants people to believe that there is no Satan. He wants you to believe that there is no God. And so it's really remarkable to see how everything is on the battlefield, which is our world. The world is the battlefield. Your mind and your heart is the battlefield. And so hearts and minds are up for grabs right now, and many of them are being won over in public school systems. And so that's why it's so vital for you and I, because young hearts and minds are very vulnerable when they're young. And so we throw them into school, which is, the system. And then after they graduate that system, we throw them into a different system where they're getting attacked by other liberal people, and they get all up in their minds and they teach them all kinds of evolutionary ideas, and they remove God from the equation. And so then many kids, when they go to college, they lose faith and they completely become atheists because they've been completely swamped with this trash. And it's just like, have you forgotten that you were made in the image of God? Like, can I tell you how amazing you are? I mean, let's not lose sight of this. So Genesis chapter 1 is so vital to really understand and have it be ingrained in people's minds, because if this can be attacked, and if you don't agree with stuff that's going on in Genesis chapter 1, then everything else down the road is going to come collapsing down. And that's what's happening in our world. There's many people. And so that's why we spend so much time in Genesis chapter 1. So this gap theory, I believe in I believe that Satan fell, but I believe that he fell after the creation period. And so the idea there is that God created the heavens and the earth, and then sometime after the creation, the 6 days of creation was done, I believe that there was probably like 100 years in there, right? So Adam and Eve, they're probably in the garden for some time, around 100 years, who knows? It's just a short time. They didn't have to be long. And then during that time is probably when Satan fell. And then after he fell, he goes in there and he goes after Eve. And so I don't believe in this millions of years where people like to try to insert the dinosaurs and stuff like that. So let's go to actually Romans chapter 5 real fast. I don't remember the exact verse, but go to Romans chapter 5. Romans chapter 5 real quick. In Romans chapter 5 verse Romans chapter 5 verse 12. Go to Romans chapter 5 verse 12. In Romans chapter 5 verse 12, it says, therefore, just as through one man sin entered the world, and death through sin, and thus death spread to all men because all sinned. So that's in Romans chapter 5, 12. So what you see there in Romans chapter 5 verse 12 is that there was no death before Adam and Eve sinned. There was no death because sin entered the world through one man. And so after Adam and Eve sinned is when death then entered the world. So that means that gap theory where people tried to explain millions and millions of years in between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2, where they say that's where all the dinosaurs died. Hey, thank you, Letha. Where they say that's where the dinosaurs died, that doesn't make any sense because Adam and Eve didn't sin at that point. So therefore, they could not have died in that gap. And so the millions of years doesn't make any sense. So it's really important to recognize what's out there, this gap theory, but it's vital to recognize that God says very specifically that he created the earth in 6 days. So important to understand. He wants us to understand that it was a literal 6-day creation, and he wrote it down. Thank you, Jempulus. He wrote it down in stone. That's how important it is for you and I to know. He wrote it down in stone. Where did he write it down in stone? He wrote it down. Let's go to Exodus chapter 20 real quick. Exodus chapter 20, verse 9, I think it is. In Exodus chapter 20, verse 9, this is the 10 commandments, which was written in stone. In Exodus chapter 20, verse 9, it says, 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall do no work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. So what you see there is that these 6 days are literal 6 days. They're not thousands of years long or anything like that. I know some people say, hey, thank you, Ashley. I know some people say that a day unto the Lord is as 1,000 years, but the important thing there is that that's just trying to relate an eternal creator to you and I. Like, we can't understand that. So he says, hey, 1,000 of our years is a day to him. It's like a day. It's like. These are literal 6 days, literal 6-day creation. And so he needed you and I to understand that. Yeah, Romans 5:12. Yep. Here in Exodus chapter 20, verse 11, it says, for in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth. And then he says he rested the seventh day. So the picture there is to understand what God was doing. And I absolutely love it. When you see what God is doing here, is you can appreciate the creation so much more. God set up a model. And the model was he had the first day of creation. He had the second day of creation. He had the third day of creation. He had the fourth day of creation. He had the fifth day of creation. And he had the sixth day of creation. And then he rested on the seventh day. Thank you so much, Julie. Thank you for that $10 on YouTube. Thank you so much. Very kind. And so you have 6 days of creation, and then he rested on the seventh. And so what God did was he did that on purpose so that you and I would mirror that. He did that for Israel so that they would mirror that. And the reason why is because when the Jewish people would rest on the Sabbath, what that would do is that would get all of the Gentiles to pay attention to the Jews and be like, hey, what are you Jewish people doing? Why are you resting on this day? You're not doing any work? What is the Passover? What is that? What is the feast of unleavened bread? What is the feast of first fruits? What is the feast of the Pentecost? What is the feast of trumpets? The feast of atonements? What is the feast of tabernacles? What is this? And so the whole point was to open a door for the Jewish people to tell the Gentiles about Jesus. It was to point them about the one true God. So all of creation, the entire model of creation is literally laid out for us in Genesis chapter 1, where you have this literal 6 days of creation. God rests on the seventh, and then he tells the Jewish people to do the same thing that he did. And the reason was because they were all supposed to point back to him. They were all supposed to see what all the Jewish people were doing, and the Gentiles were supposed to have a huge question mark about the Jewish people. They were a peculiar people, and they were supposed to use that to tell everybody else about God. And so the Jewish people, like that's what they were supposed to do. You can get, we talked a lot about the Sabbath before. So there's a lot of people who say that you gotta do the Sabbath, and they get really lost in that kind of idea. You do not need to. Paul says in Colossians chapter 2, I think verse 16 and 17 perhaps, but it talks about how Paul says, let no one judge you in drink or in new moon or in Sabbath. And so it's not something that you are required to do, especially you and I as Gentiles. We are not required to observe the Sabbath, but there's a lot of Gentiles who think that it is absolutely vital, and they get really lost in that. And so that is getting dangerously close to a works-based salvation when you start to say that, because that puts you back under the law. And I would argue or advise to go check out Acts chapter 15 if you are interested in that kind of conversation. But that is Genesis chapter 1, and that's some of the Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, we talked about how the Spirit of God hovered over the waters. And so basically the world was like a watery planet. That's what it talks about. Like the Spirit of God hovered over the waters. It's really remarkable thinking about this. So God had the earth, and it was a watery planet. It was a watery planet. So there was no dry ground all over the place. The dry ground doesn't come up until verse 8 or 9 or something like that. So right when he created the heavens and the earth was watery. It was a watery planet, and the Spirit of God hovered over the waters. Now, we looked up a whole bunch of verses about how God created the earth upon the waters, and on the foundation, he established it on the waters. It is so remarkable thinking about what God did back then. We have no grasp. We have no concept. And so this is why I don't want to get too lost in this kind of stuff. It's good to have these kind of conversations. Thank you, Blue999tiktok.com. Thank you so much. But when you start pulling some verses together, you're just like, well, holy smokes, what is really going on here? God founded the earth upon the waters. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you so much. And so when you think about God establishing the earth, thank you, Respiratory, on the waters, you're like, well, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense. Nobody would do that ever. Nobody would establish. You would never build a house on top of water. It's not physically possible. But what we're told is that God founded the earth upon the waters. And so he operates differently than you and I. We read Job chapter 38 last time. We read Job chapter 28. What's up, Manners? How you doing, man? Good to see you. And so we read those passages before, and that talked about a lot about God and how awesome he is. And then we talked about ice. We talked about the storehouses of snow. We talked about the storehouses of hail that he has reserved for the day of judgment. And you're just reading that kind of stuff, just holy smokes. It is so crazy thinking about Genesis chapter 1. In Genesis chapter 1, where we read about in the beginning, when we read about that, God created time. Here is time. God is outside of time, looking into time. And so when it says in the beginning, and we think about God and we understand how he's omnipresent, which means he's everywhere all at once, right? He's all knowing, he's all powerful, and he's everywhere. So that means right now he was there when you were born. He's here right now with us right now, and he's also at your funeral. If that happens for you, he is already there. So from God's point of view, he's looking into time, and he sees it all. It's the same concept of you watching a parade. You see the parade coming to you. Here's the beginning of the parade. The parade passes. There's the middle of the parade. And then the parade goes all the way past. And now you see the end of the parade. From our perspective, we saw the beginning, we saw the middle, we saw the end. But God sees it from up here, and he sees the beginning, the middle, and the end all at the same time. His ways are higher than our ways, his thoughts higher than our thoughts. And this is the kind of stuff that we have no concept of. And so we're learning a little bit about him, but it's just what he chooses to reveal about himself. And so it's so remarkable seeing this. And this is why, if you read the book of Isaiah, God, what you find there is that God delights in his ability to prophesy. He delights in his ability to call the end from the beginning. He's like, well, who else can do this? He's like, where are they at? Bring them out. Bring them before me. Let me see what they can do. He's like, they can't do that. That's something I can do. And so this is some pretty neat stuff, but it's all based upon the foundation that is in Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1. So that's Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. And that leads us to Genesis chapter 1, verse 3, which is where we talked about God said, let there be light. And so when God said, let there be light, hey, thank you. Really, thank you so much. When God said, let there be light, this is fascinating because we talked about a lot about light. Now, we don't need to do that much tonight, but I want you to understand, we don't understand light. We don't understand it. It's different depending on how it's observed. We don't even know how to explain it. Light is unbelievable. God said, let there be light. And so when he said, let there be light, this is so fascinating because when you look at Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, and you compare it to John chapter 1, you have in the beginning in Genesis 1, you have in the beginning in John 1, you have, thank you, I'm a whosoever. Thank you so much for those gifts. You have, thank you so much. You have God mentioned in Genesis chapter 1. You have God mentioned in John chapter 1. You have light mentioned in Genesis chapter 1. You have light mentioned in John chapter 1. And so Genesis 1 and John chapter 1 have so many similarities. It's super cool to see what's going on there. Thank you, Sandy and Yogi. Thank you so much for those gifts, guys. That was very kind. And so when God says in Genesis chapter 1, verse 3, let there be light, we have no concept. What's up, Brandon? Thank you so much. We have no concept. We have no idea. And so we unpacked a little bit about light. And so what we learned about light is in Psalm 104, I think it is, 104 verse 2, perhaps, we learned that God clothes himself in light. So we don't understand light, and God clothes himself in it. That's crazy. And so what else we also learn about light is that in what is it, 1 Timothy, perhaps, we see that God dwells in unapproachable light. And when you think about that, you're like, wait a second, he dwells in unapproachable light. Holy smokes. And then when you read the book of James chapter 1, you see that God is referred to as the Father of lights. I mean, this is remarkable. And so basically what I want you to understand there is that within the first 3 verses of Genesis chapter 1, you have in the beginning God, Elohim, super complex word right there. Then you have the Spirit of God introduced to you in verse 2. Super complex. Like, what is going on here? Then in verse 3, you are introduced to light. And so we don't understand any of that. And so when you recognize that God dwells in light, he's the Father of lights, and he clothes himself with light, and we don't understand light, it's just like, I'm just like, this just cracks me up because I'm like, like there's so many people, we all just think we're just super smart. And I'm just like, no, we're not. Like, let's remember. What's up, Dina? Good to see you. I'm a whosoever. Yeah, so amazing. I just get so I'm blown away just by these words are easy to read, but there is so much here. Thank you, Bridget. Thank you. There's the complexity here is so far beyond me. It's just crazy. Hey, thank you, Sherry. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for those gifts. So that is Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, 2, and 3. And so that is some really, really fun stuff. That's some of the stuff that we covered already. That's just a little bit of a review on some of the things that we talked about before. Then when we also talked about the firmament. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 6, 7, and 8, we talked about the firmament. The firmament is a big deal in our world today. I want you guys to be sensitive. Do you guys recognize how many people have scrolled on TikTok? What's up, Enjoy? Good to see you. How many people have scrolled on TikTok and stumbled upon a video that is basically a whole bunch of people arguing about what shape the earth is or the firmament? How many people have stumbled upon something like that where people are arguing this? No, this is what it is. This is what it is. And Bridget has, you have, yes, I'm a whosoever, both. Wendy, yeah. April, what's up, April? I have Rusty, Britt, yeah. Sandy, yes. Nathan, I have, yeah. So my point here is, yes, Lisa. So yes, Julie, Falana, yes. And it's so interesting. Sierra, okay, I got you. And so it's so I just want you guys to D Miller. It's just I need you guys to recognize that is so much energy that is being devoted into that kind of conversation. So much energy. So much energy. And so there's so many people who just make their entire channel on TikTok based on that. That is their bread and butter. That is what they got. That is everything. And I'm just like, what are we doing here? Like, what are we really like? I don't. And so, I have an opinion, but, this is my opinion. Word to test all things, hold fast to that which is good. So when we dive into Genesis chapter 1, verse 6 through 8, we enter into this conversation about the firmament. I told you guys what I believe. I believe that when God created the earth, I believe in a round earth. That's what I believe in. I believe in a spherical earth. That's what I believe in. I believe God created the earth. It was a watery planet. And then after he created the planet, he divided the waters from the waters, which basically I want you to picture like a round ball around the planet. And that is basically this round ball around the planet, what is the firmament. And I believe that the firmament, when God created the heavens and the earth, was ice. I think it was an ice layer. And so it's the picture of a hyperbaric chamber. That's what I believe. And so basically the reason why I believe that is because when you read all the way up until the flood, what you find is that people lived 900 years long. That's how old they got before the flood. And so then after the flood, after the waters of the great deep and water started to rain for the first time ever, you're like, well, why did rain? Like, what happened to make the waters rain? Like, where did all of this happen? What happened? And so we talked about this. And so I proposed the idea that is when the ice broke. And so the ice broke, basically, the hyperbaric chamber that people use in our world today, people breathe in like perfect conditions when in that hyperbaric chamber. So that's the idea of what was going on back before the flood. And so when you recognize that happened before the flood, that is, in my opinion, is why people live so long. People lived 900 years because they had the ice around. And so the idea that I propose is that possibly, and I don't know, this is just a thought, and it's important that you don't know either. Like, I mean, can we all just agree that we don't know? Like, it's okay to not know. That's why there's very little talked about this. We're not supposed to dwell and just dive in and get all, fanciful. And so I don't want it to be that way. But, I think it's good to have something to kind of build off of and pull from if you're looking for that, which is why we're doing this, which is also why it makes it so difficult going through the Bible book by book, chapter by chapter, verse by verse. When you go verse by verse, it just forces you to just get on in there. And I'm just like, oh, man. But perhaps this ice that was around the earth when God created the heavens and the earth before sin, perhaps that ice, that firmament, was shattered, perhaps by a meteor. And so the reason why I would argue that, in a sense, and not argue, but like propose that idea, is because when you read Revelation chapter 8, in Revelation chapter 8, you read about the trumpet judgments. And during those trumpet judgments, one of the judgments that John observes is something thrown into the sea, and he describes it as something like a great mountain that was on fire. And so basically what he's painting a picture of, in my opinion, is a meteor coming down from Earth, going into the water and just going. And so if that's what's going to happen during the trumpet judgments, then why could that not have happened back before the flood? And so that's the picture. And the reason why is because there's so many parallels between the book of Genesis and the book of Revelation. And so I don't know for sure, and I'm not going to be dogmatic on that. That is just something that I am going off of right now. That's what I got. Like I don't know what else to tell you. I can't like show you like here, like that's just my opinion. So the firmament before the flood, I believe, was ice. The firmament now after the flood is completely different than what it was before, because they lived 900 some years old before. Now we're lucky to live 80 years old. Like that's just how we are. Like I know we all know people who like might have lived 90, maybe 100, but it's very, very few. And so something changed after the flood. And I think we were exposed to all of the UV rays, all of the, like whatever the cosmic forces, whatever we were being protected from before, we are now exposed to. And so that's just an idea. And so you can take that how you will. That's just my opinion. And that is what we talked about before. Okay, so that is Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 through 8. And that is just a little bit of a review. But the very first day was a Sunday. The very second day was a Monday. The very third day was a Tuesday. And that is what we are going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about Tuesday, and we are going to be talking about Wednesday. So the study here tonight is going to be focusing on Genesis chapter 1, verse 9 through 19, which we'll be covering Tuesday and Wednesday. If you guys are new here, thank you so much for being here. Yeah, makes sense. Mariella, very cool. Yeah, test all things, hold fast that which is good. I don't know everything, and so I need you to recognize that. I need you to have some grace with me too, because there's some things that I've said before that I don't know if were necessarily correct. I actually made a video today where I put it out, and I was like, I think I might have been wrong. And so I don't know if you guys watched that video or not, but it was on the judgment seat of Christ, the Bema seat of Christ. And so we talked about that when we were going through 1 Corinthians chapter 3, and that was about a year ago. And so I need you to understand that how I thought a year ago is not how I think right now. Hey, new time, first time. What's up, Megan? Thanks for being here. I like the study lesson tonight. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, well, that's just a review. But I made that, I put out that video. It's a two-parter just because I wanted to explain, I changed my mind. And so I told you guys like a month or two ago that I was like working through something and trying to figure it out and trying to put the pieces together. And I was just like, man, is this right? Is this right? So then I was like, okay, I think I was wrong. And I didn't want to make the video, but I do think I was wrong. And so the way I see it now seems to make a lot more sense. And so I posted that video. So anyways, my point is that I was wrong. I think I was wrong. And so I corrected myself, not that anybody called me out. And I'm like, there's plenty of times where I'm probably wrong, but like when I recognize something and I'm like, oh, that's something right there. And I was like, I feel like I need to go back and talk about that. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. Thank you, Brett. I appreciate that. Yeah. And, the thing about studying is, the Bible talks about study to show yourself approved. There's a lot of people who are studying, but sometimes we're wrong. And that's why it's so important to recognize that it's like sometimes you're going to be wrong. And when you recognize that you could be wrong, when you recognize that you could be wrong on this secondary issue, then all of a sudden you're going to love that person, because you're going to be like, okay, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. And oh man, can you believe that person doesn't know this? Like, I can't believe that. Like, how in the world do they not know this? It's like, oh, okay. And so we need to always let our speech be with grace and seasoned with salt. And so we need to have a heart for other people, and we need to try to build them up. We don't want to make another Christian look foolish. We need to try to educate them in a loving kind of way if they're receptive of that, which is very difficult to do because a lot of people like to argue and a lot of people don't like, and so this is why humility is absolutely vital. Thank you, Letha. And so you can kind of set the scene, like how you approach somebody is they're gonna basically match how you're approaching them. If you come out swinging, then they're gonna come out swinging too. It's kind of like that one the other guy's like, he's like, we're gonna do bad cop, and he's like, I saw how you started out, and I was like, I'm gonna have to really go crazy. Anyways. That's Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 through 8. That's just a little bit of a review before we dive into verse 9. And so before we get started, I want you guys to understand this is all secondary stuff. I want you to always remember the primary stuff, and that is how to know for sure you can get to heaven. How do you get to heaven? That is the number one question on the table. It's the most important thing ever, and that is why it's always going to be the main thing, which is why we always talk about it. It's always going to be the main thing. You need to understand the bad news. The bad news is for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. That's bad news. That is terrifying. There's more bad news, though. It says in Romans 6:23, it says, for the wages of sin is death. That is terrifying. So not only are you a sinner, not only have you fallen short of the glory of God, but you also are under the death penalty. But it doesn't end there. It says, but the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord. Praise God for that. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, period. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. It is our faith in Jesus. The gospel can be found in 1 Corinthians 15, where it says that Jesus died according to the scriptures, that he was buried, and that he rose again on the third day according to the scriptures. And that is everything. That is why Paul and all the other apostles were like, Jesus and him crucified. Jesus and him crucified, who rose from the dead. They just kept on talking about it because that was everything. And so that's why it's important to recognize Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8 and 9, it says, for by grace you have been saved through faith. He doesn't say you have been saved by works. He didn't say you have been saved by going to church and, giving money to the church and doing this and doing this. Is no. For by grace you have been saved through faith, meaning that you can get saved right now, wherever you're at. If you're sitting in your room, in your car, wherever you are right now, you can put your faith in Jesus Christ right now, which is what I am hoping happens. Christians are just supposed to tell people about Jesus, but we can't force somebody to put their faith into Jesus. And so I would really encourage, if that's you, I would really encourage you to recognize what's going on right now, because time could be short to begin with. And so one day, one way or the other, there's something's gonna happen. You're either gonna be raptured out of here, you're either gonna pass away, but one way or the other, you're gonna stand before the Lord. It just depends on in what kind of manner that's going to take place. And so we want to not be ashamed. And so you don't want to stand before the judgment, or you don't want to stand before the great white throne, which is where those who never put their faith in Jesus, that's where they're going to stand. You want to be